All right, I call to order the Township of Aleppo workshop meeting of February 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Pledge of allegiance will be avoided again. Roll call, please.
President Jones,
Present.
Vice President Williams,
Present.
Commissioner Dara,
Present.
Commissioner Richard,
Present.
Commissioner Haluka,
Here.
Solicitor Stone.
I'm here.
And Harlan, would you once again give a brief explanation of the format of the meeting and the reason therefore?
Sure. Due to the COVID-19 virus disaster emergency management restrictions imposed by the governor, the Aleppo Township conducts its meetings in accordance with the applicable provisions of Act 15 until the governor's emergency disaster declaration is lifted. Act 15 allows the township to conduct meetings through the use of an authorized telecommunications device like Zoom, provided that it posts notice in advance on its website and that notice gives the date, time, technology used, and the information for public participation. The township has followed this process for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Harlan. Welcome, Tim.
Hello.
Do I hear a motion to approve the January 18th, 2021 legislative meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Well, tonight we have two gentlemen, Mr. Starr and Mr. Merrill, who have expressed an interest in serving on the authority board. And I would ask both of them to just very briefly tell us a little bit about your background and why you might be interested in the authority board. So starting with Rick, please.
You want to start with me?
Sure.
Okay. Thanks for having me. My name's Rick Starr. I've lived in the township since 1980. I've been involved in wastewater conveyance systems since about 1976. And I've actually served on the Board of Commissioners back, I don't know exactly when, but it was before we had a township manager, and we had the first township manager, and I'm glad to see that it's worked out. And also, when we had a police force, we had to deal with disbanding the police force back in those days, and hopefully that has worked out. I've been involved in wastewater, mainly wastewater conveyance, for almost 50 years. I've worked for a robotics firm. I ran their operations group for North America. I'm well versed in sewers and asset management. On the water side, not so much. I'm a little familiar with the, Aleppo's in a consecutive water system. And just from living in the township, I'm a sidewalk superintendent every time they dig a hole. So that is me in a nutshell. I'm 65. I've been retired for about 4 years. And if anybody, I got a little bored, so I started cutting grass. And so if I can help the township in any way, I'd be more than happy.
Okay, thank you very much, Rick. And after Tim is finished with his presentation, both of you are certainly welcome to join the meeting for its completion, but you can also just sign off. So Tim, if you'd tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
Thank you. I'm impressed with what Mr. Starr has said, and I almost think I want to withdraw because I'm so impressed by what his credentials are. I've been a Aleppo resident for only 2 years, and what I have in my background is being on the Leesdale Municipal Authority Board and a lot of other boards around Swickley. But and then and so therefore I know something about sewage. I don't think nearly as much as Mr. Starr, but my involvement with the Leesdale Leesdale Municipal Authority, and the complications that are involved in the current decision making. Maybe I bring some background, but it's old. It's old. I think Mr. Starr is your candidate, but you guys got to decide. And I'm willing to go with whatever you say. I incline toward people that have been involved for a long time, and Mr. Starr seems to be that. So there I am.
Well, Tim, thank you very much.
I don't want this to sound like I'm running for church council.
Very well said. Very well said.
Well, Tim and Rick, thank you very much. And Dan, would you like to chime in?
Tim, we might have the need for two. We've had an unofficial policy in the town that people like me should only wear one hat at a time, and I've been wearing two hats for a while because we didn't have anybody to be on the authority. So I'm inclined with the qualifications of you two to resign my position on the board, which would leave a spot for both of you, and just continue in my capacity as
Dan, what a diplomat.
Perfect.
And to everybody, and especially Rick and Tim, Rick, you may well know that the sewer system in the township is structured in a somewhat different way because the township owns the sewer, is responsible for all the debt, and the authority is contracted to maintain the sewer system for the next 20 some odd years. So for Tim and Rick, Dan has done a wonderful job as both the commissioner and the head of the authority. When he suggested that he might resign and therefore there would be two openings, I said I would apply to either decision, but I would hope that he would stay on board for a couple of months just to smooth out the transition.
Bingo.
Definitely.
So in fact, it would seem to me that we will have two openings in the near future. I think you both bring talent. I think the talent is somewhat different. I think both talents will be well utilized. So I think that's all I have to say unless Dan has more.
George, I would remind you that before I was on the board of the authority, I was the commissioner's liaison to the authority, and I would probably meet the continuing handoff process by just doing that for the next several months.
Okay, super. All right, well, Tim and Rick, I think that's all we need to know, and looks like.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
And
Thank you, guys.
you're
Yeah,
welcome.
Tim, you thought you were going to get off easy, didn't you?
Oh, Art, no, I didn't. I didn't.
Oh, what color is your parachute? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
All right, well, thank you very much.
And ladies.
Bye-bye.
The road weight limit study proposal, Gwen?
Just the update on that is that George and I met with Ben and discussed it, and George has asked HRG to update the study to reflect some core boring costs. So it's, we're going to be waiting for HRG to get back to us on a slightly expanded proposal.
And for all the commissioners, but perhaps especially Harlan, if we put weight limit signs up on Weber, we also need to document that there is good reason for that. And we want to make sure that the study we do satisfies all PennDOT requirements to allow us to enforce. So I've asked HRG for a second proposal, which is a bit more detailed study, including borings, which may or may not be necessary. And Harlan, are you familiar with the research, the analysis that we have to do to make it enforceable?
Generally speaking, it's covered in the motor vehicle code, and I think we have some materials even internally on what's required for the study. But it's also a combination of the motor vehicle code and PennDOT regulations, which also spell out what the requirements are of the study. And I've talked to Ben about this, and I'm sure HRG is very well informed on what would be required, especially the regs. Most engineering firms that do these studies know the regs very well. But yeah. And also, I think it's really smart to invest that extra money, because from a legal standpoint, you're spending a lot of money to do the study. If it doesn't give you enforcement power, then the only effect it has is the same as if you hadn't done the study and you just wanted to create a deterrent. So if you're going to enforce it, then you should go the extra step.
Thank you, Arlen. So I think the bottom line is we're waiting for additional information. We'll have an opinion from HRG. We'll have Harlan review, and then we can bring it to the table. Any other discussion? Zoning ordinance update, Gwen?
So we had the first meeting with the consultants about that at the Planning Commission, and it went really well. It was just basically a review of the list of topics that we have compiled so far, things that we want to talk about addressing in an updated zoning ordinance, errors that we have found that we want to correct, that kind of stuff. And so we talked about the process, and we think that the process will be that the Planning Commission will be the base of the discussions first, with the consultant, the Planning Commission, and staff members like Harlan, Ben, me. And we're going to work through some of those things and get some drafts going. Then once there is a draft of the zoning ordinance, we will open it up to the commissioners for review, and then open it up to certain members of the public. If a steering committee is decided upon, later in the process, we can invite them in to have any input in some areas that they're interested in. So that's just the process. We had our first meeting, had some good exchange of ideas. I invite the commissioners and even residents, if they have ideas about that they want to have us talk about as part of the zoning process, to just get in touch with me. And it's a fluid list. So we can add all kinds of things to the list.
Your prepared drafts, will they be redlined against the existing code?
I'm not sure. I would have to ask if that's practical, or if this is more, it would be more efficient to just do a bit of a rewrite. I will ask them.
Okay. It's a good way to highlight what's been changed.
Yes, and definitely spell out, what we've talked about, what it was, what it will be. Yes.
Right.
Dan, on that point, having lived with this ordinance for a while, I can say that and Gwen knows this is my feeling, there's a lot of stuff in there that does not need to be changed. And so it seems to me the idea of a red line on those sections that we are changing probably, I don't want to speak for HRG, probably makes sense.
George, if you're talking, we can't hear you.
His lips are not moving.
Am I there now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the commissioner stipend increase, are you familiar with this, or should we let Gwen handle that?
Yes. Well, I think both Gwen and I can participate in this one. Just as background, we received a long document of changes from the General Assembly, and in one of them was a notice of the commissioner's stipend, which is set according to how many, what the population of your municipality happens to be. In our case, the Class 1 Township Code allows for a stipend of up to $3,145 per year. The others, important point to point out is that the commissioners are not allowed to give ourselves a raise. And so what we have done in the past, we should do the same thing because it worked, is that I made the motion that we consider increasing the stipend, which at that court time went to $18.75. And however, since I still have 3 years in my current term, I cannot participate in that increase. So is that correct, Gwen?
Correct. Actually, and Harlan, you checked me on this, but the board can vote on it in this, in the next month or two if they choose to do that. No one can accept the increase until the seats are won again. So, for example, if 4 of you are running this year, the raises for the 4 people that would win, if you would win the election, they would take effect on January 1st, 2022. So you could vote on it now in the spring, and it would just be a change that would happen after the next election. And then how Art's not on the ballot, so he would have to wait until he would run again and win, and then he could take advantage of that increase.
Correct.
Okay. Any questions on those methodology? Anyone? So Gwen and I had a chat about this because it can be, I think it should be discussed tonight and thought about. I personally would be hesitant to make it one fell swoop all the way up to 3185 if it was in a reasonable period of time, like a year or so. But now the way the stipulations read, it will be more than 3 years. So that kind of an increase doesn't seem to be too unreasonable. Gwen, do you have any input on that aspect?
That would be fine if you want it. Like Art said, it can be, the increase is up to the new maximum that Art said. So you are free to set it at any level that you want in between here and there. If you want to do it in increments, that's fine. Round numbers are nice. So whatever, we can just round it to whatever it is a month, that would be fine. So I think Art and I had talked about a possible increase he had suggested 2,400, up to 2,400, which would make it a $200 a month stipend. So it's up to the board if you want to set an increment or you want to go to what the new statutory maximum is.
Do you think this makes any difference at all or would make any difference at all in getting people interested to do this?
I asked that same question, and the answer was that a lot of the municipalities had concerns about attracting people, and I think that this is one of the reasons they happen to do it at this particular time, and it's been quite a number of years since they did it before. So, yeah, I think there's part of that would play into the discussion.
Harlan, are you aware if we were to approve the opportunity to increase the stipend and just kind of leave it out there for a while, is that appropriate?
Not sure what you mean by that, George.
Well, in the past, some commissioners have taken stipends, some have not. Art worked for a while at a lesser stipend than others. So I'm wondering, do we have to make a decision as to go forward with it, or just make a decision to have the opportunity to go forward?
I think the latter, if I understand you correctly, so you're not voting for a particular commissioner to receive a particular stipend. You're voting to create a level of compensation for the position, not for the commissioner, even though the commissioner can't take it while he's still in office because you're prohibited from voting yourself a pay raise. All legislatures are. So I think the simple answer to your question is yes, you can vote to increase the compensation across the board, although any individual commissioner would still have the prerogative of whether to take it or not when they were eligible.
Judy, do you have any further comment?
I guess I'm hearing a lot of hesitancy, but I'm not hearing a reason other than, are we just uncomfortable voting ourselves a future raise?
No, I don't think that,
No,
I don't think
just
the
said
level of,
you're not voting
You're not-
yourself up.
right.
It may not be you. You're assuming you win the election. If you lose the election, then you're paying somebody else the raise. It's definitively not voting yourself a pay raise.
I get the splitting the hairs thing, but I guess my question is there a reason not to do this other than the bad look that we think it's going to be?
Well, the last time that we did this, which was 2 years ago, I guess, we got no reactions whatsoever. And this is not as much of an increase as it looks for the total years. It's $200 a month. So I don't think that there's any reason. Somebody can, of course, they can step forward, but obviously the position would be this, that we are not giving ourselves a raise. We are merely raising the level of the value that the state assembly has said that the job allows.
Judy, I think you make a good point to get people interested in the world of doing this going forward. I don't think it's bad at all to increase the stipend that somebody might get for taking the time to do this.
Yeah, I think in this day and age of volunteerhood, I don't think it's going to make or break anyone, but I think it might be part of the whole picture in getting someone interested. And, you know, it may sound better at 3,000 versus 1,800.
Well, it does sound better at 3,000 rather than 1,800. But there had been quite a long time since the prior commissioners raised it, and that was the reason that I stepped out and had taken a lesser amount until my election was up. So for what was it, a year and a half that I had to wait for me to catch up to the rest of the group.
Yep.
That was my thinking behind the fact that we might want to take it part way to the $200 in that case, so that in 3 years from now, when I would be able to, number one, win the election and be eligible for that, it would be just a smooth transition.
So what
Okay.
is the downside? I'm still not hearing it from anybody. What is the downside to just voting to do this?
I don't think there is one.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear it again.
I said, I don't think there is a downside.
No, I don't know that there's a downside, quite frankly.
The numbers that you're talking about, I don't think anybody cares.
Yeah.
Then I think we just kind of said what we're all thinking we want to do.
So Harlan, is this how do we do this? Is this a motion or this just a discussion of intent?
Would you do it tonight, or do you want to do it next week at the legislative meeting, or?
I would prefer to do it in the legislative meetings. That way it's
Yeah.
more open.
Yeah, because a lot of people won't participate in the workshop. So if you're going to take anything like raising compensation, anything like that that's significant, should be done in the legislative meeting. And
my question was an educational one for me, whether this act would require a motion, and it does. Okay.
Well, wait. At a minimum, it requires a motion. Probably, I don't know. In the past, when we did it the last time, did we actually do a formal resolution? And did we?
We'll have to look that up. I'm not sure. I don't remember if it was. Just
I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't remember that.
Okay, I do suggest a resolution, probably just because it's a little more formal than your average motion. And you probably should put just something in writing so it can go in the ordinance book or in the resolution book, and it would be on record.
Okay.
And then if anybody wants to ask, like, somebody, what is the salary or what's the stipend for a commissioner, you don't have to go searching back through minutes of old meetings to find out what was voted on. That way it's part of your book.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
So my suggestion is you put entertain a motion at the legislative meeting to authorize me to prepare a resolution that sets the stipend in accordance with the most recent amendments to the first class township code, and then I'll prepare it. It'll be a short resolution, and that way it'll be a permanent part of your book.
Just to keep things as flexible as possible, after we declare that we want to raise it to 3145, if that happens to be the number, as you pointed out, the individual commissioners can decide what they want to do themselves.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Upward and onward. New
Cool.
business.
George, if you're talking, we can't hear you. Well, I can just go.
Yeah.
The new business would be fence regulations. We received a letter from the Manor Homes Association. They were concerned about a fence being built on property adjacent to Manor property, and they were questioning the code enforcement process, and they wanted to know, how fences are enforced, because there's another one going up on another property adjacent to the Manor. And so when we did receive a complaint about this fence. And so when we got it, our code enforcement officer did follow his procedure, and he sent a letter to the homeowner saying that we had received a complaint, and he would, the regulations are 6 feet and posts need to be facing inward on the property. And he requested to meet with the homeowner to discuss it. And he went out to the site and measured it. And the fence itself is the proper height, but there is a crossbar across the top that's too high. So the homeowner is going to be removing that cross piece at the top. And the homeowner is also going to be installing another side of the fence, because the posts were facing out and they need to be facing into the property. So he's going to install the same kind of slats on the outside of the fence so that it meets the code. And that is our process. Most fences do not require a permit to construct. We do recommend that people call us with when they are going to build anything and just check in. Check in with us and see if there are any regulations, see if there are any rules that they need to follow. Our code enforcement officials and building officials good at getting back to us. We field questions a lot. And so we recommend that people call and just say, hey, what do I need to do here? And so that's how the fences are handled. The other fence that's going up, we had communications with the property owner and with the contracting company before construction was started. So that's how things are. When we receive a complaint, our code official goes out and checks it out and, works to resolve it according to our ordinances.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other discussion on fence regulations? The next agenda item has been canceled, the Endurance Real Estate Legal Waiver. Thank you, Harlan. Gwen, do we have any citizens online?
I have not received anything. No, I have not received any citizen participation.
Is there any further business? If none, therefore, meeting adjourned.
All right. Gwen, I'll talk to you tomorrow.